This is Midweek Politics with Dave Pakman.
Welcome back to the show. David Pakman here. Check us out on the web at midweekpolitics.com. Before we move on, a couple people I want to thank, Lewis, because quite frankly, they're doing a lot to help us, so I want to acknowledge them. Cody M., David D., Vivian B., Lori S., Graham A., and Tim S., a few of the new members on the Midweek Politics membership bonus show and podcast. Thanks, guys. Thanks for registering. And Lewis, a lot of the new things we're able to do and will be able to do are a direct result of members that are signing up, just like Cody, David, Vivian, Lori, Graham, and Tim. Are they not?
Definitely. We owe a lot of what
debt
we're
of
able to do
gratitude.
here. Yeah.
That's absolutely right. Okay, more shootings have been linked to right-wing terror and anti-Obama sentiment. The latest episode, as if we really needed more evidence that this was going on, the latest episode happened in Carlsbad, California. A guy actually opened fire on young children and was reportedly yelling, "Death to Obama," when he went off. If you missed the original story, maybe it was because the original reports just didn't mention the Obama thing. This is not a coincidence, is it, Lewis?
That it wasn't reported?
Right.
Right. No coincidence at all.
Neighbors are now saying that they've heard the guy yelling obscenities in the past. I wonder if he had his TV on at that time and what he was watching, if you know what I mean, because it's something we've seen come up in the past. And people are equivocating on every single one of these. Here's an example. Well, I mean, there's countless examples. The Dr. Tiller killer, Scott Rader. Remember when we talked about this guy, Lewis, almost every week?
Of course, yeah.
That was just a crazy guy. It wasn't about left or right wing. It was just a nut. Only nuts would go out and shoot someone in public. Hold on a second. He thought he was saving people by killing an abortion doctor. There's nothing just unbiasedly crazy about that. James Von Brunn, the D.C. Holocaust Museum shooting. Well, he was a lone crazy guy. He was just protesting. He was just posting on some right-wing internet forums and white supremacist forums. He doesn't really represent the right, you know? That's just a lone guy. But the underwear bomber, he represents the left, Lewis. He really does represent the left, right? I mean, that's what we hear. That's what we hear in the media. The Tides Foundation shooting. Well, it can't be Glenn Beck's fault. Anyone that could be influenced by Glenn Beck to shoot people obviously was bound to commit crimes anyway. Well, hold on a second.
So why is the media afraid to label this as right-wing terror?
Well, I mean, we're opening up a can of worms here. Much of the media is right-wing, and much of the media itself is responsible for inspiring some of the rhetoric, right? They are there. Right. The rhetoric is starting with some of those media outlets. They certainly are not going to implicate themselves or admit any level of guilt.
Right.
And what's amazing is that Byron Williams, I think, is the guy. I was just reading about this the other day, the Tides Foundation shooter. He made very clear, somebody actually went to the jail where he's being held and interviewed him. I wish I had the details here. I just don't, unfortunately. And he said that he was just amazed by what Glenn Beck did. He wouldn't even watch Fox News if it wasn't for Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck exposed him to the light and showed him what was going on with the Tides Foundation. I mean, come on, who had heard of the Tides Foundation, especially Byron Williams, before Glenn Beck? And this guy's freely admitting it. But no, you're not going to hear real, honest, sober coverage of that.
I guess not.
And this also brings up an interesting issue, which is let's be honest with ourselves here. A lot of what we're seeing now is because Barack Obama is an African American. We can't get around that. We saw kind of some silly statements made right after Barack Obama won, saying racism is now over. And obviously they were absurd, and we now, even many of those people are now kind of going back. They're recanting on those ideas. But there's no question, Lewis, that much of what is going on is because there is anger that an African-American man is the president of the United States. I don't know what percentage. I'm not purporting to know. I'm not accusing anyone specifically of being racist. But you would not be honest with yourself if you would deny that.
Of course, there's some of that, but at this point, I mean, I think just because the country is so polarized on politics and what's going on all issues right now, I think that's mostly what's going on here.
You don't think that the majority of what's going on is we have a black president?
I don't think so, no.
I'm not saying that either. What I'm saying is that it's a much more of an issue than what is being publicly discussed in the media. That's absolutely for sure. Many of the different incidents of violence have race as the context, and they have race as a factor, and they have race as an aggravating factor for sure. Will race ever just be nothing? You know, I mean, so for example, right now, whether you have blue eyes or brown eyes essentially is not a factor. I mean, there's other traits that may come with it, which people still consider when they look at a person. But really, I can't remember the last time I was ever witness to any kind of discrimination or prejudice based on somebody having blue eyes or brown eyes or green eyes. Will race ever be like brown eyes or blue eyes or green eyes, or how thick your eyebrows are, or you know, whether you have a mole on your face? Will it ever be that insignificant?
I don't think it will be, because as long as you have people who are separated, I think there will be stereotypes and there will be racism.
Separated in what way?
Separated by region, separated by country, by continent. I think it's unavoidable.
So you're saying even if within the U.S. there is more racial integration than what there is now, and there is more racial equality, and education is more even, and income is more even, because in the world environment there is still separation based on the way people look and their race, you don't believe we will ever get to a point where race is just an afterthought the same way the size of someone's earlobes is?
Right. I don't think so. I think that's impossible. But let's say there was full integration worldwide. And
yeah, but you're saying that's not going to happen.
No, I mean, how could it? I don't think that'll ever happen.
It's sad in a way. I mean, not in a way. It is sad.
Doesn't mean things won't get better. And of course, you're still going to have areas where, with poor education and, you know, areas like that will be worse in terms of racial discrimination, stereotyping.
Midweek Politics is made possible by listeners like you and by Greenfield Savings Bank, building a strong community one account at a time, with neighborhood offices in Greenfield, Amherst, Conway, Shelburne Falls, South Deerfield, and Turners Falls, and online at greenfieldsavings.com. By the Daily Hampshire Gazette and GazetteNet.com, connecting our communities with local news and information. By DIF Design, specializing in custom business websites at DIFdesign.com. Find out more about underwriting Midweek Politics at midweekpolitics.com.